If you want to learn how to create a sexy homepage for your website that looks just like mint.com or a little bit like Apple, then this video is for you. Alright, in this video we're going to reproduce the mint.com website. It's a really cool website from Mint, a finance planning app. If you haven't seen it, maybe worth trying it out. I don't have it, but I'm not in the States. It won't work for me. Anyway, we're going to try and reproduce this website, and this is what it looks like. Pretty cool Apple style website, left, right, features and benefits, and some cool features that are worth trying out. I'm going to use the Thrive Architect plugin on WordPress to do this because it's a really simple way of producing this kind of content. And I've created a blank slate to work from here for the homepage, and we're going to start with the hero section, the top section on the Mint website. And to do that, we need a background section, and we need to make that stretch to full width here, and then we need to add an image to the background. So I've already uploaded all of the images from the Mint website so that we can speed through this. And I'm going to apply that, make it centered, center alignment, which is a new feature that Thrive's added. They're always adding some cool new features. This has only been released for a few months. It's already one of the most powerful and simple to use page builders on WordPress. So there we have the picture. Next we need a simple heading here, and I'm going to copy the text from Mint. They're using a font called Circular, which I don't have access to, so I'm actually going to just reproduce this and center it with an Arial font, which is similar to what they're doing, but it won't look exactly the same. So if we look there now, it's a little bit bigger font. I think it's a 60, I measured it earlier. So we'll start off with the font there and just put in a bit of padding at the top to bring it down. We're going to need to fix that later once we put in the menu and the logo on top. So we're just doing this piece by piece. We're going to do the second piece of text here next. Not so exciting, but we're going to get to the button in a second. So we're just going to put that underneath, paste it, center it, and again make it white. And what I haven't done yet is change this to Arial, which is a web safe font. And we also want to do that here, although I don't think it's going to make a huge difference. Alright, so how are we looking, people? It's not looking bad. Let's make that bold, a bit thicker. And then the text needs to be constrained. So we're going to reduce the width of the text down here, and then we have to center it. And there's a little bit of padding there, so I'm going to put a negative margin in, which brings it inside the neighboring container. The margins are the areas around elements, and if the elements are bumping against each other, you have to go into a negative number to bring it inside and closer. The Thrive builder gives us space between the elements automatically, which we don't always want, so I needed to go negative on this one. So that's about right. And then we just want to put a nice orange button, which is here, and it's a square button, so we don't need to change it. We just need to add an icon to it and some sign up free. Everything's free, isn't that great? But I'm sure there's some upgrades where they're making some money. So this is a Times font, which is not very sexy. Let's change that to Arial and reduce the font a little bit. I think theirs is a bit smaller, and go back to the button and add an icon, and then we need to click on the icon to change it, and we're going to change it to a lock, and they're using a simple lock like this one. So now we have that. The spacing's a bit different, we could play with that, but I'm going to spare you the pain of the details here. We're just going to change the color and the hover color to orange, so I need to pick their color. If you're not used to this, you can right click and inspect in Chrome or Safari and get to the details, and I'm going to steal or borrow, depending on how you look at it, their color. So now we have their orange color, and on hover you can do different effects on the buttons here. We can change to the hover state, which is when you hover over a button, and we're going to make this a bit darker. Because when people hover on things, it's good to change them a little bit to give them an indication that it's clickable or you can do something. People expect that kind of behavior, that buttons or text or things you can change, that they hover, that have a hover effect on them. So otherwise it's a bit strange. So now if we hover over that, it darkens, and if you look on, it's very similar on here. So that's pretty much it for the main marketing hero section. Alright, now that we have the main marketing message in the hero section in place, it's time to move on to the logo and the navigation at the top. We're just going to do that section. I'm not going to worry about all the extra little buttons. Just get the main menu running and we're good to go. So the easiest way to do this is to use a column layout, which I'm just going to add on the bottom here, and then I will move it to the top. Of course, it's screwed around with our spacing a little bit, but we will do that last. So the first thing we want to do is make that run across the screen. So we stretch to screen here, and then we want to add the logo on the left, which we have here. We want to improve the spacing of that a little bit. We need some margin on the left and not so much margin on the top to make it look a little bit more like what they have on Mint, which is just about 5 or 10 pixels out. Ours is a little bit too much, but let's just try 15, and that's approximately correct. We're not going for exact here, are we, people? We're just here to learn something. So now let's look for the menu. It's called the custom menu, and we add that in, and we're going to edit that, and we can choose any one of our menus that we would normally use on our pages here. So I'm just going to use my main menu. It's not the menu for Mint, it's my main menu. And as you can see here, it's got all of my main links that I would normally have, including the color standards for the Mad Lemmings website, which is not what we want. We want actually to have white. So let's edit the menu a little bit. Actually, not that button, that's to edit the contents of the menu. We want to change the color to white, and if we all remember, that is F. Lots of F's turns that white. We also want to capitalize it with the double T here, the title case, and we probably want to change the font. So let's change the font to, let's assume it's probably the Arial again. It might not be, I'm not going to check it. And it's a little bit chunky. So actually I am just going to quickly check it and see what they're using. They're using the same font with a 600 weight and 12 pixels. So let's just change that to 12. Gets us a little bit closer to what we want. Space the lettering out a little bit in the advanced section. Let's try 2 pixel spacing, and if we've got it in bold, I'm going to remove it, but I have a feeling it is not. So I'm just going to leave that like that for the moment, and I'm going to remove the padding at the top of the columns and then introduce it back into the logo area. So now we have more or less what we want. The font's not right. I'm not going to spend time on that, and obviously the sub menu here is a bit different to what that's theme dependent. It's a little bit trickier to do. I'm not going to get into that in this one here. And if you want some extra buttons on the right, you can actually just grab a button and drop it on the right hand side here, and it creates a new column automatically for you in Thrive. And let's just do the orange one using the same color. I'm just going to save this color to my favorites. There's also a hover effect which we need to change. The hover of the button is just slightly darker. If you haven't played around with the hover effect before, it's at the top. We need to click on the outside of the button to get to the button, and then the top here to change the state to hover. And then we need to just increase the darkness of the button a touch. And then we will exit that state. So now we have the hover darkness. And actually what I'm going to do, just to make my life a little bit easier, I'm actually just going to save this for a second. I'm actually just going to duplicate this button and then put it below that one and delete it. It's going to make my life a little bit faster. Copy what you've already done, and then we'll remove that, and we'll change the font to 10, 12, whoops, that's 10, 12, a little bit better. And let's say we want that aligned to the right. And we want to put a little bit of margin in there to move that away. We could be more exact. And we probably want to change the padding on the button a little bit. Let's just get very detailed here and go back to the default state for the button and change the padding. Let's change it all at once. So we click this center link element and let's just reduce it a little bit. And then unclick that, because otherwise if I use it in another element it'll be clicked again. So that's more or less correct. Actually the button's very wide and very high. You would have to play around with this a lot more. And let's change the column padding. When you get that little arrow on the columns, it means you can resize it. So now we have approximately what they have in the Mint header. Of course, the alignment of this center section is now screwed up because of the new columns, so I'm going to reduce the padding I have in here by, let's make that 100, and then below the button I'm going to put some margin in, or you can put in a minimum height of the element. It's probably a smarter way to do it. I'm just going to do this quickly. So you can either margin the button. The margin is the space around the element. The padding is the space inside the element. So just so if you haven't used this layout positioning stuff before, that's how layout margins and paddings works, and it's shown here with a box. And if you've got a border on an element, the border sits between the margin and the padding. So now we have this top section done, people. High five. Woo, woo, woo. Okay, let's move on now that we've got the excitement out of the way. And we want a standard 3-column layout for this stuff, and I'm just going to continue using the Arial font and just steal their headings. I'm just going to copy that before I create it. So now we just want to dump in, we can just click columns and then 3 columns, and then we want a heading, and I'm just going to paste my text in here. It's come across automatically, and I'm going to center it. I presume it was centered. It's a little bit smaller, so let's reduce that to 20, which is about right, and bold. And then we have a paragraph of text underneath, which we're also going to center and borrow, and the font looks like about a 10 or something. So let's just change that to maybe a bit more, 12. It's a little bit small in my opinion, and it looks like it's a bold. Let's make it 13. So not quite right. The font's a little bit off there. I'm going to increase that to 14. I get very particular with my web building. That's about right. And then we want an image below there. You can also use icons above or below. They're using images. And which one is it? It's the lines. It's the little lines, and I think it's a little bit too large. So we're going to need to reduce that size a bit, and then scroll down here and center it. See if that matches. That's about right. And then if we put this in a container, containers are really handy for just either resizing a bunch of elements together, moving them around together, copying them together, which is why I'm doing it. So it looks exactly the same now. A container is just, in HTML it's typically a div element which doesn't do anything, but you can apply sizes, alignments, that kind of thing to everything within it, which is really handy. And what you can also do within Thrive is you can then copy that as one single element. You can even save it as a single element for reuse. And I'm having trouble getting the container, so then we go up to the top and grab it and copy that in. And let's get the container again, copy it again, and then copy that across. And then you've got your 3 elements. We just need to copy the text across. I'm just going to speed through this. If you're ever pasting stuff anywhere actually on the internet and in design, if you don't want to screw up the formatting when you paste text in, you can actually usually do Shift and Control or Shift and Command, and that will paste the text in without formatting, which can be really handy, because if you bring the formatting when you copy stuff from web pages, it often screws things up. So if you're copying from a document into a web page, use this trick. Totally recommend it. Saves my life so many different times. So that way we just get the text itself instead of, and you can even do it with right click. I think it's called Paste Special. So now we want to change these images, which we can do here to, I think it was this one. Doesn't really matter. We want to center that. Why is that not centered? And maybe reduce the size a little bit. Is it the dots? It is the dots. And then the other one's even smaller. And then this one is the other one, which is the lines. And we also want to reduce that. And then the centering has been screwed up. Now if you look, we've got the second section done. I don't think that's necessarily ideal. There's nowhere to go from this section on the Mint website. There should be a more details page. I can't actually almost click anything here until the learn more, which is kind of annoying. So in a web design perspective, conversion perspective, I would do that quite differently. But anyway, let's move on. We need another section, and it needs to be a full width section because it's grey, but the text and the picture are not full width. So what we're going to do is add a background section, full width it, grey background, grey colour. Let's add in a sort of a light grey colour. Don't know what colour they're using, very light grey, something like that. And then we can do the old minimum height trick so that we can see what we're doing. And then we want to dump in, let's say, a 50-50 column layout. That should be really quick. I'm just going to put that in there, and I'm going to do half-half, and then I'm going to put in, I think it's text in here, and copy the text. And it's actually more or less like this one, so I'm just going to actually bring that down here instead and left align it. And then how's the rest of the text? Also very small, so I'm actually going to delete that and copy this in since we've gone to the trouble of creating this already. And we're going to left align everything again, and then I'm just going to see if I can grab the whole lot. And that's what happens when you don't use the special paste. I just wanted to use it because I wanted the bullets. Where are the bullets? The bullets have screwed everything up. So we're going to have to go and format all of this, change it to Arial. This is what happens when you don't use the special paste, people. Use the special paste. And the color is a bit off as well. It's not quite right, but good enough. There's a bit more line height. It's another lesson for you guys. Line height is the height between lines of text. So you can space out text by grabbing the text you want to align and then line heighting it. So we just want to align the bullet points like that. I'm not going to do the learn more, that's just a link, it's pretty easy. We want now the sexy picture in here, so let's grab that and try and get it in the column. He's dancing with me. Alright, there's the picture, and the picture wasn't behaving. Now the picture's behaving. Let's make the picture a bit smaller and put a lot of padding, or we can do a bottom align. That's another trick. The text is bottom aligned, or you either put a margin at the top. Padding is also good, but padding is technically not what you want to do. Or you can do a bottom align on the columns, so you get all of the columns, and then you do bottom align, and then we may want to put some bottom margin just to bring that up. So it's just different ways of playing with formatting. So now we have that section, and the picture is actually flush with the bottom, so we want to get rid of that padding. And there's probably also some columns padding. So the elements all come with padding built in, which is good and bad. And now we have the picture aligned on the bottom, and that's more or less exactly what we have there. So now we have another full width layout element that gets quite tricky. So let's put that background element in. And let's see if full width fixes this one, because what I'm looking at here, I don't know if you guys can see this, but actually this picture is underneath this element. It looks like 50-50 columns, but it's not, because if you see that hand is actually going underneath the text and the icons. So my assumption without looking at the code is that this is a picture and it's aligned to the left, and then the text is on top of it, but sort of going around it. And that's quite tricky to do on mobile and stuff, because typically things come in and squish, but these guys have done a pretty good job. So they must be right aligning the text with padding and left aligning the picture is my assumption. But let's just try and replicate that with a background image, which, as I've said, I've imported all these images. It's this guy here, and let's see how it looks when we bring it in. I'm actually having some trouble here, so I'm just going to reload the page, see if I can get this to load. I don't think my picture came in correctly there. The image is there, I'm just not seeing it, so let's make some height. Our usual trick. There we go, there's the picture. We were just seeing the top of the picture. It was loaded correctly. And what they've done is they've sized the picture to keep it kind of aligned, but Thrive will center align these pictures. As I'm resizing this, you'll actually see the picture stays centered. What we want to actually do is we want to have that picture staying left centered. Or actually it was on left top, maybe that was the best thing to do. Alright, now let's try and put some text there, because this is a little bit tricky, so something for you guys to learn. We're going to put a content box in here, and we're going to align that content box, and we're going to do a minimum width so that we always keep it on the right hand side there. And I'm just going to put some minimum height in there so you can see it a bit better. And then we're going to copy some text in here. I'm presuming it's the same text again, and I've missed the content box. And let's just copy in that element and put that in there. It's pretty similar. They've actually got icons on there, which is a little bit harder to do, but Thrive can do it. So actually what we want for these guys is not boring bullet points. We want Thrive bullet points. So let's take that and then dump that in there, and then what you can do, we actually need to move that content box a little bit narrower so it doesn't touch that hand, and it lines up with the picture above, which is nice. So with these list elements, they've actually got them not as pure black, so I'm just going to change the color a little bit, sort of a grey. And then you can actually individually change either all the icons by clicking on the list element group or by the individual icons. So we could go and grab, what's that? It's like a little calendar icon, something like that. And then we have a little money icon. Obviously we don't have the same icons. These guys have created their own, and you could import them as PNG pictures as well. Let's see if we can find the dollar. There it is. So you can search for the icons in this new version, which is really nice. And then that's a security shield icon. Let's try shield, something like that. And then I'm not going to go and do all of this, but basically we want to just make sure that this content box is actually bottom aligned, which we can't do without columns. So how am I going to do that? For the moment, I'm just going to push that down like that. We might have to play with the padding and the sizing to get it to not touch the hand when we resize on mobile, but that's a pretty good, and I'm just going to save that. Not that I need it for anything. So how am I doing here, guys? Oh my god, we nearly have done the homepage. I'm actually going to skip the next section because it's the same but reversed with a colored background. One thing we need is a slight grey underline, so let's just quickly do that as well. Actually, we need a border on the bottom. Borders, so let's just do a 1 pixel border and just on the bottom, and it's a light grey. Now I've got to go and remove the other borders. Remove. See if I can do it by making that one 0. Actually, I haven't used this much. Okay, so we have to go to each element and click 0 or none on the sides we don't want. We only want the bottom one. So now if we look at that, we have a slight, still a little bit too dark, grey line on the bottom, which is what they have. It kind of gives a bit of depth to the white elements. It makes them look like they're below, which is quite nice. And the last element I wanted to do, actually, this element's really easy, 3 columns, 3 pictures, 3 pieces of text, but what I wanted to do last was this mint fresh banner on the bottom. Even though that's not the section that we're up to, I'm just going to skip a bit because you guys need to get on with your lives and move on from this tutorial, but I'm going to space that out so that we can get the mint logo hovering above, and then we're going to do, it's another full width element with a background, but it's kind of a gradient. Now gradients are cool, but don't overdo them. They need to be subtle. So let's have a look at what they've used. They've actually used a custom image, I think. So we can't steal their images, but with the color picker, I can steal their colors. So let's start off with that one. So I'm going to click on the little box, and then I'm going to make that. And then I'm going to go to the black one, and I'm going to steal the darker color over here. They've actually got kind of a radial thing going, which is a lot more complicated, but let's just try and do a subtle gradient like they've done and apply that. It's more or less the same. And let's give our minimum height again so we can see what we're looking at. So that's pretty cool, pretty close, huh? Not too bad. And we just need to have now a heading in there to go on the top, and it keeps dropping it in the wrong place. Then we need to center it. Centering is always nice in elements like this, and we need to make it white. So let's give our Fs again. Fs, everybody likes Fs. 3 Fs or 6 Fs will get you white. Let's copy what Mint is saying, and I've just ruined it with the formatting again. Sorry about that, guys. And let's slide up to white. I don't know if that's big enough. That needs to be, let's try 36. And the heading width is actually reduced. I'm not sure if I can do that in Thrive. I'd have to put that in a container. Good old containers again to make that width. I can't actually change the width of this element, which is, there it is. Actually, I lie. I can change the width there, and they also have with Mint. And they've got a little bit of extra line height. Remember, the line height is the width of the lines that the text is sitting on. So let's click away and see how we're doing. We need to center our text element now that it's not full width. See what's fresh with Mint. And we need to reduce the space there at the top. Increase, I mean, because we're going to put a logo in there. Hope you're not getting bored, guys. This is the last thing I'm going to do. I'm just going to put in this text and make the sexy picture. Let's copy in some text. And I'm just going to make that white and make it about 14 and center it. There's two different centerings. There's text centering and element centering. We're looking for text centering here, and we need that to be a reduced width again. We should have probably just put it in a container to save us from having to do it. Gotta love the containers. And then we want a button. Let's grab the button, but this is a different button. We want what's called a ghost button in Thrive, or a button with only a rim around it. So let's change the button style and let's choose ghost, and then let's change the button color. The button color is green, and we're going to change it to white, good old F's, and it hasn't taken. Got to click apply, still hasn't taken. Do have a bug, people? Maybe we have a bug. Got the text white, and I want the border white. Still not fully working. Where is the problem? They've actually got a border on it. That's really annoying. So it's done with a border. What does the text say? News and press releases. And the font is a little bit smaller. Let's try 14. It's about right. They've actually got a slightly, it's not a white border, and they've got some padding in there, but that's good enough for now. Let's move on to the picture so we can finish this up. Let's take our image and put it at the top, and then we want our little minty guy, and that's actually the incorrect one. I made a JPEG instead of a PNG. That should have a opaque, transparent background, but I've screwed it up. Apologies, I saved it as the wrong format when I was preparing for this video, but you'll get the idea. We basically want to center that image, and I want to reduce the width because it's not formatting correctly. Why are you not formatting correctly? Image size. Okay, it was the size of the image that was wrong. What size should it be? About that. And then we use the margin, because this is where margins get really cool. If you use a negative margin, it pushes the element outside the boundaries. The margin is the space between your element and the next element outside the element. So if you do a negative margin, it actually pulls it inside the next element instead of spacing outside the next element. So what we want to do is we actually want to do a negative margin, and then we also want to reduce the text one to something like 18. So if you can imagine for a second that this picture was actually see-through, it would overlap here. We'd actually move it. That's about right, actually. See what's fresh with Mint? It's almost exactly right. We have to bring this obviously down to this border, but we've skipped a few sections because we want that picture sitting on the border, using the bottom alignment stuff again, and throw in these other columns. But they're pretty much the same as the ones we've done. So let's just go for a final preview. Oh my God, I thought I was on the Mint website. That's so amazing. Actually, I need to save this. And do the preview again. Hopefully it brings across our final section. There you go. Not quite finished, but pretty damn good, if I do say so myself. So if you want to hire me, I can do this for you. All right. Hope you learned something there, guys. This is a really cool homepage, standard Apple left-right kind of layout that everybody's doing. Really good for SaaS products, service pages, giving lots of features and benefits and highlighting those down a page, creating always constant different colored backgrounds to break things up. You can put pictures in, you can put pictures with colors on them, you can put all sorts of things, but always have different alternating elements, otherwise things look really boring. And you've got the hero section on the top with the main marketing message and the main marketing conversion action, which is to sign up. So really important, and that is really cool. So I hope you enjoyed that. Give it a thumbs up if you liked it. If you've got any questions, I'd love to hear them in the comments. If you've got any issues with Thrive Architect or other builders you're using and want some help, I've also used Elementor and Beaver Builder and Visual Composer and Divi. I use all of them for my clients, but I prefer to use Divi or Thrive Architect at the moment. There's more Thrive Architect videos in this series if you want to see them. They should be on the right hand side. I've built other web pages. I'll be building some others. I'll be showing you some other cool tips and tricks. And if you want to learn SEO, there's a ton of SEO stuff on this channel as well. So don't forget to subscribe down below. Hit the big red button. It's free. I create videos for you guys. And I also blog at madlemmings.com. So see you in the next video.